You see here, I'm going to list for you 10 metacognitive strategies, such as previewing, preparing for active reading, paraphrasing, reading actively, using the textbook even if it is not required, going to class and taking notes by hand, doing homework without using solved examples as a guide, teaching material to a real or imagined audience, working in pairs or groups, creating practice exams. Now we're going to work through that together, and as an example, I am going to show you a text that it is impossible to use this strategy of previewing with. So I want us to take a moment and read this paragraph together. Now I've given you a handout with this paragraph because I realize this font might be kind of small for you. But I want to give you a minute to read this paragraph and see if you can figure out what is the procedure that they are talking about. So your minute starts now. Okay, we're just going to pretend that a minute has gone by. If this were really my kids, of course, I'd give them the whole minute. But now that you've finished, does anyone have any guesses as to what this procedure is? Now look at the paragraph again if I've given you the heading. Really makes it much more obvious, correct? You could probably answer specific questions in it out of, like if I asked you, what will the whole procedure seem to be, and where should you put things in their appropriate places, and how should you arrange things into different groups? And you could answer all of those questions successfully, but you would probably have no actual idea of what you were talking about. And that's the type of learning we want to get away from, with people just memorizing things or answering questions and not understanding at all what they are actually talking about. And so here is our first metacognitive strategy, and it is to preview. Just like if the previous selection about laundry, if you had previewed that heading, rather than just skipped it, you would know more about what you were reading. And it's a very important reading strategy. And you need to look for subject headings, boldface print, italicized words, charts, or graphs. If it is a novel, look at the cover, read the back, read the first line of every paragraph you are assigned to read. And I found this graphic on the internet. It's called Thieves. And it may be, visually created to appeal to elementary school students, but it is actually very interesting. Look at the title, the headings, the introduction. Read every first sentence of every section. Look for visuals. Do they help you with vocabulary? And then read the questions at the end. And be sure you summarize or paraphrase as you read. But this is a very good, previewing strategy. Our second metacognitive strategy is to prepare for active reading. Now that you've previewed, prepare your mind for active reading. Ask yourself questions. What do you expect to learn? For instance, we just read a unit on romanticism, and we had 2 or 3 pages in our textbook that had great big headings and subheadings and pictures. And did we look at them and try to figure out what we were going to learn? I'm afraid we didn't, which is something that I need to improve on, asking you, my students, to be able to do. This slide has a lot of active reading strategies. You can question, what do words mean? Why is that important? You can make connections to things that you've done before, like we'd been previously talking about the Elizabethan age. Now it's the Romantic age. You can predict. You can review. You can evaluate. You can say, I like the way that they explained this. I like that they included this. This is what I learned. And you can visualize. Our text is very good about including pictures of that represent the different historical movements. The third step is going to be the step that I would guess that most of you would resist the most. It is probably the one I would resist too. But get into the habit of rewriting what you have just read, paraphrasing, in your own words. And remember, if you can't rewrite it, you probably didn't understand it. Remember, we want to learn, not just memorize. So next time you read something, annotate your text. And if you don't want to write in your textbook, use Post-its. Put them inside your book. It's very cheap, easy, and you don't destroy the value of your book if you're going to resell your textbooks, which, unless you financially need to do so, I would urge you to keep them. Your next strategy is to read actively. As you're reading, highlight, take notes, ask yourself questions, make flashcards, draw a map or an outline or maybe even a cartoon, something that only you would understand, but that will help you keep reading actively. The biggest problem with student reading I have found happens to me too, and I'm a pretty good reader. It is, I'll start reading and all of a sudden I'm thinking about where's my snack, or what happened to my roommate, or is there going to be another test? I have more work to do. Why am I reading this stupid thing? And then pretty soon you're just reading words. Your eyes are still reading, but your brain is not. So read actively. Strategy 5 really hit me hard, and it may seem really obvious until you actually get to college, but a lot of instructors say, don't buy the textbook, just follow my notes and you'll be okay. And I have to admit, I am one of those. I have a night class that I didn't have them buy the textbook for. And this really kind of hit me hard because I realized that I probably cannot tell them everything that is in a textbook. And while you think you might be doing them a favor by saving money and time, you're really not giving them the full education. People spent a lot of energy putting graphs and illustrations and ideas and examples into textbooks, and we are essentially robbing you of those examples and things if we don't have a textbook. So use the textbook. Strategy number 6 is to take notes by hand and go to class. Everyone thinks they have a system to beat it. Someone might try to give you their notes from last year, or they'll say, okay, I'll take notes on Mondays, you take notes on Wednesdays, you take them on Fridays, and we'll just share our notes. And that is not going to work. It just is not going to work. You got to show up. That's 95% of life, is showing up anyway. You're paying a fortune. Show up. Go. Show up. Take notes. Don't just take pictures with your phone. Take notes. This is another strategy that I was surprised by. Don't look at the solved examples when you do your homework. And I think what it really means is don't look at them until you figured it out for yourself. Too many times, if you look at the solutions to the problems, you're only looking at how they got that answer. You're not understanding the principles behind something. And so the professor is always going to want to throw you a curve. So be very careful with that. Figure out the principles of what you're doing before you looked at the solved homework. I remember when I was in high school, our math books had every other answer, and so I just always got a 50. Strategy 8 is to be a teacher. teach it to a friend, stuffed animal, your little brother or sister. But by teaching something, you master it. And any teacher can tell you that. There are things I've learned just to teach you, especially like in technology and things, that I would never have learned if I wasn't a teacher and if I didn't have to show you how to do things. So we want to pause here for a moment, and I want you to think of something that you know how to do, some small little task, and teach it to your elbow partner. Maybe it's how to assemble a flute, make a Whataburger, make copies at work, feed a cow. We can all do something special. Think for a moment how you would explain this to another person, and then I want you to actually explain it to your partner. We'll take a few minutes to do that. Find a good study group, strategy 9. Find a good study group, prepare. Probably don't do it with people you're friendly with socially, because then you'd rather just visit and gossip than study. I know that's true for me, but if you find people that are strong academic students, those are the guys you want to hang with and see what they can teach you. Strategy 10 is to make practice exams and share them with your study group. If everybody makes a test over the same material, it'd be interesting to see, first of all, what things people consider to be really important, and also to see how thoroughly you cover that material.